I'm not the guy who's here for Puffy's downfall, but I am the guy who supports the victims who got victimized, right? That boy life is dangerous. And his life is and he just not dangerous with the they said he was doing, but he's in danger. He know too much.
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac's murder.
Tell me, man, why do you believe that Jay and Puffy is close, even though Jay's lawyer came out and said they're not?
Because Jay-Z and Puff was given an assignment.
There's no punishment if they protected by the road, the judge, the DA.
3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
Tupac's a legend. Like I said, Tupac wasn't born, he was sent to us.
To rewriting history is some try to rewrite history.
And they was getting a lot of money to make albums and records. When they had guys down south that these labels was paying $250,000, $300,000 on record deals, and these guys was bringing back platinum albums and everything like that. So what they had to do was they had to keep New York rappers. In that deal, we got to keep these East Coast rappers down. Because down south rappers, Cash Money, No Limit, Ludacris and them, they was taking little money and bringing back more money and making more money.
Yes. Yes. He hated every bit of it. I remember one time, he was like, who did you grow up listening to? I'm like, Tupac. I ain't mentioned Biggie. That nigga ain't even talk to me for like 4 days after that. Everything with Pac, like, you couldn't say Pac was anything better than Biggie. You can't put them in the same realm or nothing. It was all about.
So they was placed to destroy the East Coast rap. And then along came a somebody. They was about to bring East Coast rap back. And there's nothing they could do about it. And this kid was finna put.
The real reason why they ain't gonna let Puffy out is because they trying to connect that Keefer D situation with Puffy. That's what I really think it is. Because if it came down to some sex trafficking, foolishness, and all that, there are buku chumped up charges they couldn't prove. I don't think they got no evidence. I think they trying to keep him in there to lock in that Keefer D. You heard me? That Keefer D situation with Puff. I think that's the only reason why he's still in jail right now.
They said Suge Knight was untouchable. Then he vanished for 3 hours in a federal prison. No paperwork, no guards, no explanation. Just one chilling piece of grainy footage. 2 masked figures dragging him into a room that doesn't exist on any official layout. And now the whispers are turning into roars. Was this a sanctioned hit? A federal cover-up? Or the final chapter in a decades-old East Coast? West Coast blood feud with Diddy's name scribbled all over it. When that silent hallway security tape leaked, the world saw more than just a prison beatdown. They saw the curtain pulled back on a war that never ended. Because if Suge Knight was the target, who's next? It starts like a bad dream, blurry, silent, and soaked in dread. The kind of footage that makes your stomach twist even before you know what you're looking at. The hallway is narrow, dimly lit, and claustrophobically quiet. At first glance, it looks like any other routine day inside R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility. But what unfolds next isn't routine at all. It's a trap captured in grim, lo-fi detail, a nightmare played out in real time. There he is, Suge Knight, towering, slow-moving, guarded by 2 correctional officers who keep just enough distance to make it feel unimportant. The frame jitters slightly as he turns a corner, his steps heavy but deliberate. And then it happens, without a sound, without warning. 2 masked figures emerge from a blind spot, moving fast and with military precision. No hesitation, no words. One grabs his arm, the other strikes. Suge staggers, his body slamming against the cold cement wall before he's yanked violently through a side door that no one knew existed. Until now. The door shuts behind them with a chilling finality. Metal on metal. No echo, no shouts, just silence. And then nothing. The hallway sits still, as if frozen in time. No guards rush in. No alarms go off. The camera keeps rolling, but Suge Knight has vanished. 3 hours. That's how long he was off the grid. In a federal prison. In a facility with 24/7 surveillance. With armed personnel stationed every few feet. Yet for 180 minutes, there's no documentation of where he went or what was done to him. No incident report. No video footage from inside that unmarked room. No explanation from the Bureau of Prisons. Just a black hole where accountability should be. And the questions pile up fast. Who are those masked men? How do they know exactly when and where to strike? Why was Suge's transfer routed through a blind spot? One that just happened to be located near a mysteriously accessible, supposedly unused wing of the prison. How does a maximum security institution, run by the federal government, lose track of one of its most high-profile inmates for a full 3 hours without triggering an internal emergency? To make matters worse, no guards have been suspended. No administrators have issued a public statement. The silence from the top is deafening. And in that silence, the conspiracy theories are growing louder by the hour. Some are calling it a sanction hit. Others believe it was a message, one meant to intimidate, to silence, or possibly to force Suge's hand in something bigger that hasn't been revealed yet. What we do know is this. When Suge Knight returned to his cell, something was different. Officials say he refused medical attention. Prison sources say he looked shaken, uncharacteristically quiet. And most disturbingly, he hasn't spoken publicly since the incident. Not on his podcast, not through his lawyers, not even through back-channel prison contacts known for leaking information. A man who once built an empire by being the loudest voice in the room is suddenly, eerily silent. And that silence might be the most haunting part of all. Because in a place like Donovan, silence isn't just compliance. It's survival. Or worse, it's fear. Fear of what might happen next. Fear of who's watching. And fear of who might have orchestrated the kind of inside job that can make a man disappear in a prison full of cameras and come back like nothing ever happened. But something did happen. And the tape proves it. The room Suge Knight was dragged into doesn't exist, at least not officially. According to the public layout of R.J. Donovan Correctional Facility, that wing was shut down years ago. Too old, too understaffed, too unstable to house even the most dangerous inmates. And yet, the door swung open like it had been used yesterday. No padlock, no posted guard, just a dark entryway into a space that's not supposed to be there. The hallway camera caught the ambush, but nothing from inside that room has surfaced. No video, no audio, no explanation. And that silence is where the Real story begins. Because in a federal prison outfitted with 24/7 surveillance, every inch of a transfer path is supposed to be monitored. Every door, every hallway, every guard post logged and accounted for. The Bureau of Prisons has protocols, and this event broke all of them. A former correctional officer who worked at Donovan for over a decade reviewed the footage and didn't mince words. There's no way something like this happens without help, he said. The timing, the location, the access, it's too perfect. Somebody opened that door for them. Somebody gave them a window. Another ex-staffer told us, under strict anonymity, that the wing where Suge vanished hasn't been operational in years. It was used for internal storage and overflow during COVID, but even then, it was under lock and key. That door should have been welded shut, and yet it wasn't. Worse still, when asked about that part of the facility, the Bureau of Prisons declined to comment. No acknowledgement, no press release, no denial. Just nothing. Not even a "we're looking into it." That's when the word sanctioned started to creep into the conversation. Not just tolerated. Sanctioned. A message sent with the full cooperation, or at least the silent permission, of someone much higher up the chain. A whistleblower who previously worked in internal investigations at another federal facility dropped an even colder theory. If the Bureau needed someone out of the picture, temporarily or permanently, they'd never do it themselves. They'd make sure the environment was just unsafe enough to let it happen. No fingerprints, no blood on their hands. Just a door left unlocked at the right time. And that's the scariest part. Because if this wasn't just a prison beatdown, if this was a ghost move by the government, then Suge Knight isn't just in danger. He's a target in a system that knows how to disappear people and make it look like nothing ever happened. If you're thinking this feels personal, like old beef bubbling back up to the surface, you're not wrong. Because Suge Knight doesn't just have enemies, he has legacy threats. And topping that list is a decades-old allegation that's refused to die. The rumor that Sean Diddy Combs once put $1 million bounty on Suge Knight's head. That theory has floated through hip-hop forums, street corners, and studio whispers for years. Most dismissed it as urban legend. Paranoia. Gangster fairy tales from the golden age of rap. But now, amid this prison ambush and Diddy's unraveling legal empire, those whispers are getting louder. And receipts are starting to surface. Back in 2009, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, now awaiting trial for orchestrating Tupac Shakur's fatal shooting, was recorded in a police interview where he was asked point-blank about Diddy. Did Combs play a role? Did he fund the violence? Keefe didn't even hesitate. Yeah, he said flatly. I think he did. That's word on the street. Then came a gut punch. According to Keefe D., Diddy once said he'd give anything for Suge's head. Let that sink in. That alone would be disturbing. But add to it claims from a former DEA tipster who told federal investigators in 2011 that Combs allegedly offered $1 million to have both Suge and Tupac taken out, and suddenly this isn't just rap folklore. It's a murder-for-hire conspiracy that spans decades and has never been truly extinguished. Even Suge Knight himself has alluded to it, repeatedly, in interviews, on prison calls, on his podcast. He's long said there were people in high places, music moguls, federal agents, entertainment elites, who wanted him gone. And now, with one leaked hallway video, it's beginning to feel like he wasn't exaggerating. Because if a bounty was placed, and if someone still wants that score settled, the question isn't just why now. It's why not sooner? And the answer might lie in what Suge Knight still knows, and what he might be about to say. Make no mistake, the Diddy investigation isn't just a scandal, it's a volcano. What started with one lawsuit from Cassie Ventura has now exploded into multiple federal raids, civil suits, and a widening circle of witnesses that includes former assistants, label employees, bodyguards, and more. What connects them all? Power abuse, manipulation, secret settlements, and a culture of silence crumbling under the weight of subpoenas. But there's one name that keeps resurfacing in that case, over 50 times and counting: Suge Knight. Some believe that's no coincidence. As investigators dig into Diddy's past, Suge's legacy keeps rising from the ashes like a warning shot. Their rivalry wasn't just tabloid drama. It was war. A war with casualties. A war that may now be under federal review. With Keefe D. in custody and reportedly cooperating, with documents resurfacing, with Diddy's legal team under siege, some are asking, is Suge next to testify? If he is, then the prison ambush starts to look less like intimidation and more like sabotage. Could someone be trying to silence Suge Knight before he says something explosive in open court? Could this be an effort to discredit him, destabilize him, or simply remind him that he's never truly safe? Not even behind bars? And that's where things get truly dark. Because if Suge Knight holds keys to a story that could implode Diddy's legal defense, or implicate others far beyond the bad boy empire, then this isn't just about justice. It's about legacy, about control, about survival. And that hallway ambush, that might have just been the opening shot. Before the silence, there were warnings. Strange, cryptic ones, broadcasted not through official statements or legal filings, but through Suge Knight's prison podcast, Collect Call. A raw, lo-fi, state-issued phone line turned confessional booth for one of hip-hop's most feared and fascinating men. Suge didn't name names. He never does. But he didn't have to. Every episode was laced with veiled threats, coded language, and unsettling calm. Like a man who knew something was coming, and wanted the world to know he knew first. In one of his most chilling segments, Suge said this: people forget who laid the concrete under these streets. They forgot who built the roads. But some of these roads lead back to basements, not studios. These boys didn't just make music. They made deals. Deals. Not distribution. Not streaming. Deals. Underground transactions. Silence for silence arrangements. And, according to Suge, secret rooms. He spoke of locations buried beneath recording studios, label offices, and, most hauntingly, government buildings. Places without windows. Rooms with no sound. Then came the dagger. That boy Diddy, he know about all of it. Every trapdoor. Every handoff. Ain't no way he's squeaky clean when he used to walk through the blood, just like us. He just wore a whiter suit. That line was quickly clipped and scrubbed from social media after the podcast aired. DMCA takedowns rolled in fast. But those who heard it, they remember, and they're now connecting dots. Suge wasn't rambling. He was documenting, breadcrumbing, leaving a trail in case he couldn't finish the story. And now that he's gone dark, after a violent, unexplained ambush during a supposed routine transfer, those cryptic warnings play differently. They sound less like braggadocio and more like a man foreshadowing his own takedown. A man who already knew the walls were closing in. People like to say Death Row Records died when Suge went down, when Tupac was murdered, when Dre jumped ship, when Snoop moved on. But that's a lie. Death Row didn't die. It morphed. The suits changed. The artists grew older. But the spirit of that empire, the fear, the power, the betrayal, never left the yard. It just took on new faces, new companies, new alliances. Because Death Row wasn't just a label. It was a force. A pipeline of street-to-industry power that made billionaires and left bodies behind. And the deeper you look, the more you realize every betrayal that took place inside those studio walls didn't stay confined to rap. They metastasized into courtroom dramas, federal indictments, broken friendships, and quiet funerals. There's even talk of a death row curse, a trail of ruin that seems to follow anyone who once stood too close to the throne. Tupac dead, Nate Dogg dead, Lisa Left Eye Lopez, who was reportedly looking to sign, dead, Biggie gone. Even Dre, though still alive, has survived brain aneurysms and public collapses of his inner circle. And Snoop? Now the face of a revitalized, family-friendly death row. A death row with branding deals, nostalgic merch, and Spotify playlists. But even Snoop has admitted the ghosts linger. He said publicly that there are things he can't speak on, things he won't. Because while Death Row may have changed owners, it never changed DNA. The label was built on silence. And that silence still screams in the background of every courtroom, every contract, every new legacy release. And Suge? He was Death Row. Not just the CEO, not just the enforcer. He was the gatekeeper to something darker, something that still makes people nervous to say his name out loud. Now that he's been attacked, that curse feels like it's waking up again. Suge Knight doesn't have enemies. He has a graveyard of vendettas, some buried, some still breathing. And right now, as the world watches the fallout from his prison ambush, those enemies are starting to resurface. Let's start with Dr. Dre. Dre and Suge's relationship began in the shadows and ended in courtrooms. The Chronic launched an empire, but the lawsuits that followed drained it. Dre claimed he was extorted. Suge claimed he was betrayed. And for decades, their beef simmered beneath the surface. Until Suge started talking. He claimed Dre set him up, that he ducked payments, that he financed dirty work without ever pulling the trigger himself. Dre has never responded in detail, but he's never denied those allegations either. Then there's Ice Cube, publicly distanced, privately rumored to have severed all ties after a mysterious financial dispute. When Suge went down for the Terry Carter hit and run, another case cloaked in strange timing and missing footage, some questioned whether old rivalries played a role. Carter, after all, wasn't just a bystander. He was allegedly trying to broker a peace between Suge and former allies. Allies who'd since become millionaires and left Suge in the dust. And then there's the paperwork. Courtroom testimony from past cases reveal references to canceled checks, money moved through shell companies, funding what prosecutors called extracurricular violence. In plain English, assassination plots. Financial transactions disguised as consulting fees. Security payments made to people who never wore earpieces. Now, with the federal spotlight burning down on Diddy and names like Dre, Cube, and Suge being pulled back into conversation, one thing is becoming crystal clear. This isn't just about what Suge did. It's about what he knows. Because the music industry isn't just a business. It's a battlefield. And Suge Knight? He's one of the last surviving generals. You'd expect alarms to go off. Internal investigations. Emergency press briefings. But instead, silence. The kind that feels less like bureaucratic delay and more like a cover-up. The Bureau of Prisons has refused to comment. Flat out. No statement. No timeline. No admission that Suge Knight was ever off the radar. Even after the footage leaked, grainy, time-stamped, impossible to refute, their answer remained the same. We are aware of the video circulating online. No further comment at this time. No further comment. Not even after Suge Knight was placed in solitary confinement. Not as a protected victim, but as a suspect. Not even after legal sources confirmed that no charges have been filed, no assailants identified, no correctional officers reprimanded. Instead, Suge was buried deeper inside the system, moved to a section of the prison cut off from contact. No visits, no podcast episodes, no legal filings, just a man in a cell, as if he did something wrong. This is the core of the setup theory, that the entire ambush wasn't a breakdown in protocol. It was the protocol. That Suge Knight wasn't failed by the system. He was offered to it. A sacrifice. A warning. A man too loud, too defiant, too dangerous to the order that's quietly run hip-hop from the shadows for decades. Former DOJ insiders have anonymously told reporters that Suge's case complicates active investigations. What investigations? Into whom? They won't say. And that silence is louder than any denial. Because it signals one thing clearly. The government isn't protecting the man. They're protecting the machine. And in that machine, Suge Knight has always been both a cog and a threat. To most, the 90s rap wars ended in tragedy. Tupac and Biggie dead. Death row in ruins. Bad Boy sanitized and corporatized. But what if that wasn't the end? What if it was the beginning? In the weeks leading up to Suge's prison ambush, multiple indictments were unsealed across the country. Drug trafficking, wire fraud, sexual assault, conspiracy. Many tied to hip-hop royalty. Diddy, Young Thug, YSL, the RICO charges, the podcast leaks, the reactivation of old cold cases. And now, a hidden room in a federal prison. 3 hours of unaccounted time. No official response. It's starting to feel like unfinished business is being settled. Quietly. Surgically. Some insiders believe this wasn't a random assault. It was a trial run. A way to test how the public, the press, and the industry react when a major player gets hit in plain sight. And even more chilling, there are whispers of a list. Not a legal docket. Not a court calendar. A hit list. One allegedly circulated in federal circles and echoed in street rumors. And Suge was first. Not because he was the most guilty, but because he was the loudest and the most likely to talk. Because buried in the dirt of the 90s are secrets that could take down not just record labels, but entire entertainment empires. Murder staged as random violence. Artists set up as fall guys. Executives laundering more than money. And doing it with help from politicians, feds, and corporate partners. What happened to Suge wasn't personal. It was strategic. And now, we're left with the most haunting question of all. Are we watching the first domino fall in hip-hop's final reckoning? For years, people laughed at the conspiracy theories. Secret rooms, shadow indictments, the idea that music moguls were running covert operations with the blessing or silence of the government. But how many more strange coincidences before the picture becomes clear? Keefe D indicted 27 years after Tupac's murder. Diddy hit with a federal investigation involving blackmail, abuse, trafficking, whistleblowers leaking stories of parties turned rituals. And Suge Knight, once the boogeyman of the industry, silenced inside a prison where no one can explain how. So now we have to ask, who's pulling the strings? Who benefits from Suge being silenced? From Diddy being cornered? From names like Dre, Cube, and Snoop staying quiet? Who's protecting the ghosts of the 90s? While reshaping the industry for a new, sanitized generation. And most importantly, what secrets are still buried? Because if Suge's ambush was just the beginning, we haven't seen the worst of it yet.